There was a time when nobody cared about calories or sugar counts. All that mattered was the taste, the color, and the fun. The 1980s were full of bright packages, wild flavors, and snacks that made every kid feel like life was one big commercial break. Saturday mornings meant cartoons, cereal bowls piled high, and drinks that looked like they came from outer space. Today, we're looking back at 10 junk foods from the 80s that defined an entire childhood, but would never survive today's health standards. So sit back, imagine that old TV humming in the background, and let's open up the lunchbox of the past. 1. Mr. T cereal. I pity the fool who skips breakfast. Back in 1984, this cereal made kids feel like heroes. Each piece was shaped like a little golden T, coated in enough sugar to power a whole morning of cartoons. The commercials were loud, colorful, and full of energy, just like Mr. T himself. Kids loved it, parents tolerated it, and dentists probably cried a little inside. By the late 80s, it was gone, but the taste still lives in the memories of those who grew up with it. 2. Jell-O Pudding Pops. The coolest snack in the freezer. These creamy chocolate and vanilla pops were the ultimate after-school reward. They weren't just a dessert. They were a small celebration at the end of the day. The texture was smooth and rich, something between ice cream and pudding, but behind the sweet flavor were artificial colors and oils that made nutrition experts shiver. They quietly disappeared in the 90s, but people still talk about them like an old friend they wish would come back. 3. Hubba Bubba Soda. Bubble gum in a bottle. Imagine opening a can of soda and tasting bubble gum. That was Hubba Bubba Soda, released in 1987. It was pink, fizzy, and so sweet that even your teeth felt the shock. Kids thought it was magical. Parents thought it was madness. It didn't last long, but for those who tried it, that one sip felt like drinking pure fun. 4. Planters Cheez Balls. The orange finger era. Every 80s party had a bowl of these, bright orange, perfectly round, and covered in so much cheese dust that your fingers stayed stained for hours. The crunch was satisfying, the flavor was addictive, and nobody cared what was in them. Eventually, changing food rules and health standards took them off the shelves. Still, every time people see a cheese puff, they think of those tiny orange balls of joy. 5. Kool-Aid bursts. Twist, squeeze, and smile. Those colorful bottles were everywhere. Blue, red, green. It didn't matter which flavor, they all tasted like summer. You'd twist off the top, take a sip, and instantly feel refreshed. But the truth was, each one was loaded with sugar and artificial colors. It was more chemistry than fruit juice. They still exist in small forms today, but never with the same wild energy of the 80s. 6. Dunkaroos. Cookies and frosting for lunch. Nothing made a kid's lunch cooler than a pack of Dunkaroos. Tiny cookies you could dip into thick frosting felt like the height of luxury. Nobody cared about nutrition labels. It was all about fun. Parents started worrying later when they realized how much sugar was packed inside that little box. Dunkaroos disappeared for years, then returned with a slightly healthier twist. But for 80s kids, the original version was untouchable. 7. High C Ecto Cooler, the drink of Ghostbusters. This bright green drink was a tie-in with the Ghostbusters movies and featured Slimer right on the box. It had a citrusy, candy-like flavor that every kid loved. It wasn't juice, not really, but it sure felt like it when you opened your lunch. The color alone was enough to make you smile. Eventually, it vanished when people started reading ingredient lists more carefully. Still, the nostalgia for that green glow never faded. 8. Ouch! Bubblegum. Sweet bandages for the imagination. This gum came in a little tin that looked like a bandage box, and each stick was wrapped to look like a Band-Aid. It was clever, playful, and pure sugar. Kids carried it in their pockets like treasure. Today, that kind of packaging would never pass safety standards. but back then, it was just another piece of everyday fun. The gum was simple, but it made you feel creative, like even candy could have a personality. 9. Hostess Pudding Pies, the forbidden snack. If you grew up in the 80s, you probably remember these shiny glazed pies. Chocolate, vanilla, banana. Every flavor felt like a secret treat. The crust had that waxy, crunchy coating, and the filling was so sweet it almost sparkled. Of course, they were packed with preservatives that made them last forever, which is probably why they vanished as times changed, but one bite could still bring you right back to the school lunchroom. 10. Pepsi Blue, the future that never was. Technically released in the early 2000s, Pepsi Blue was born from 80s style experiments. It was electric blue, berry flavored, and impossible to forget. The color alone looked like something from a science fiction movie. People loved it at first, but it didn't take long for health critics to call out the dyes and chemicals. It vanished almost as quickly as it arrived, but that first sip still lives in the memories of those who dared to try it. The 1980s were a time of freedom and flavor. We didn't worry about ingredients, we just enjoyed every bite. Sure, some of these snacks might make today's nutritionists faint, but they also made childhoods brighter. They remind us that sometimes, happiness came in the form of a neon drink or a frosted cookie. Which of these treats do you remember most? Tell us in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this little trip down memory lane, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us again next time on RetroNest, where the past always tastes a little sweeter.